Hello everyone and welcome! Continuing the story of Demacia, it is now time to have a look at Garen. In case you missed the story of Lux, as always the links will be at the end of this video. Just like Lux, Garen was born to the Crown Guard, a family charged with protecting the king. Garen's father Peter devoted his life to the defense of King Jarvan III, and Garen was trained to defend the king's son, Jarvan IV, should he become the next ruler. Since his family knew well how important this task was, they made sure Garen was filled with Demacian pride and was prepared to stand for his realm. Demacia was founded by weary survivors of the Rune Wars, those looking for a life of peace after enduring the cataclysm that came from the misuse of magic. Many wouldn't speak about those dark times at all, but Garen's uncle spoke of it often. He was one of Demacia's best scouts. His job was to travel out into the wilds beyond the wall and root out any magical threats. He told Garen about the wonders of the outside world, but also about its dangers. One day, something, whether it was the mages or the creatures of the void, attacked the walls of Demacia. 7 months later, Garen's uncle died in a tragic accident. It was said that he was slain in battle, but Garen learned from the whispers in his family that it was the bloodletting spell of one of the dark mages. This confirmed Garen's worst fears about the horrors of magic, and he vowed, full of anger, that he would never allow its presence within the walls of Demacia. Only by following Demacian ideals and by displaying Demacian strength would the kingdom be safe from the corrupting magic. The day his uncle died, Garen was surrounded by people expressing their condolences. Although he had never seen many of them before, they all gave him gifts of respect and offered their support. At that moment he saw Demacia as a kingdom of unity, where people took care of one another and healed others' wounds. He saw an ideal Demacia, where no one was ever truly alone. As years went by, the hate of magic followed him closely. He wrestled with a suspicion that his sister Lux possessed magical powers, but he never allowed himself to think about it for too long. The thought of a crown guard being able to use the same forbidden powers that killed their uncle was simply too unbearable to deal with. When he was 12, he left home and joined the ranks of the Dauntless Vanguard, an elite group of warriors covered in magic-resistant armor. He spent every day and night training and studying the art of war. He devoted every moment to perfecting his swordsmanship, even after his lessons had ended. Most nights his superiors had to take away his practice sword, otherwise he would sneak out with it. One day, while training with the Vanguard, Garen met Jarvan IV, the king's son. The young prince showed his greatness and he inspired Garen to train even harder, and soon they became friends, always eager to duel one another. When their training was complete, Garen gave Jarvan a pin embossed with the sigil of the Demacian eagle, a reminder that he would always look out for his newfound brother. During the Noxian assault on Demacia, Garen gained a reputation as a fearsome fighter, one of the greatest in all Demacia. He took a crossbow bolt to the chest to save one of his men during the search for the Freljordian ever-filling goblet. He walked without armor through the silent forest to ambush the servants of the Rancid King. But despite his courage and skill, Garen's greatest failure came in the midst of a Noxian attack, where he was unable to protect his prince. Jarvan and his troops pursued a retreating band of Noxians. The young prince was determined to avenge the hundreds of massacred villagers, but instead he led his soldiers into a trap and they got captured. Garen was furious at himself for failing to be there when Jarvan needed him most, so he gathered few knights and they rode out in search for the missing prince. After a while they discovered the Noxian camp, but they only found Jarvan's armor next to a pool of blood coming from the executioner's post, the Demacian eagle pin soaked in it. Though they continued to search the area around, deep in his heart, Garen knew Jarvan was dead. For days, Garen was inconsolable. He couldn't stop blaming himself for Jarvan's death, even as his family and fellow soldiers tried to convince him otherwise. He remembered how the kingdom rallied around him when his uncle died, and he wished he could do the same for the kin of his fallen soldiers. So he gathered his knights and they gave everything they could to support the families of the fallen. Soon the king Jarvan III heard about Garen's deeds. He was impressed with his humble and pure reflection of Demacia's ideals. The king grieved for his son, but he recognized Garen's courage, a warrior who viewed all Demacians as his own family. So the king honored Garen, reminding his people that Demacians never stand alone, in battle or at home. Though Garen's sister Lux had followed his footsteps, coming to serve the crown in Demacia's capital, their relationship remained distanced. For some reason, a small part of Garen always found it hard to get close with her. Possibly because his never-ending hate toward magic, and also because his duty would force him to do horrible things if his suspicions were true. Today, Garen stands ready to defend Demacia with his life. In the rare occasion a rogue mage or Demacian spy is discovered inside Demacian lands, Garen is the first one to volunteer his sword. He is more than a formidable and feared soldier. He is the embodiment of Demacia's core values: strength, courage, and unity. The following story happens during one of Garen's rescue missions. A Demacian soldier was tied in ropes inside a hidden cave by an old hag that seemed to be a witch. She had a rope ready around the soldier's throat. He couldn't speak, at least not because of the rules she laid out, and if the soldier broke the rules one more time, she would slice his head off instantly. Of course she could do it anyway at any time, but even she had a form of honor. Even she had rules. Because without rules, where would she be? In a disarray, that's where. She was performing some sort of a magic ritual. It appeared like she was draining the soldier's memories from his head and into hers. But then there was a scream outside, probably one of her sentinels, and another scream, and another. The pale woman could tell someone hostile was approaching. His heavy boots slammed onto the wet floor of the cave. When the echoing steps finally stopped, a broad-shouldered man stared at her from across the cavern. The blood splash on his breastplate slowly dripped down, and she could tell something was wrong, as if the armor itself calmed down the magic inside the witch. The knight with a broadsword made his way to her stone throne. She smiled, waiting for him to hold the blade up and bring it down screaming toward her head. He would be in for quite a surprise once he did, but instead, he put his blade away and sat on the ground. Wordlessly, he stared into the old woman's eyes, patiently holding her gaze. He did not break their connection, even to flick his eyes in the direction of the leashed soldier at her side. "Do you know who I am?" the woman asked. "You feed off the memories of the lost and abandoned. Children say you are as old as the cave you inhabit. You are the Lady of the Stones." He said with confidence. "Ha, that's not what they call me, and you know it. Rogue hag, that's what they say. Afraid I'll smite you if you use that name, eh? Trying to butter me up?" She coughed. "No," Garen replied. "I just thought it was a rude name. It's impolite to insult someone in their home." The old seer chuckled until she realized he wasn't joking. "And yours?" she asked. "What are you called?" "Garen Crownguard of Demacia." "Here are the rules, Garen Crownguard of Demacia," she said. "You have come for your lost soldier, correct?" The man nodded. "Do you intend to kill me?" the woman asked. "I cannot lie. I think it likely that either you or I will die. Yes," he replied. The woman chuckled. "Eager to spill my blood, are you? Maybe you'd even succeed with that armor." She coiled the rope, squeezing the soldier's neck tighter around her ancient hand. "Still, if you raise your sword against me before our dealings are through, I will pull this so quickly you will hear the snap of his neck echo in your mind for the rest of your days." She yanked the leash to taunt him. Garen's gaze remained unflinchingly focused on her eyes. "So the rules. If you can give me a single memory I find more delicious than the accumulated memories in this one's mind," she said, flicking the prisoner's helmet, "I will take it from you and give you him." She watched Garen's eyes closely now for any hint of doubt. "If you cannot, well..." She tightened her grip on the soldier's leash. "Should either of us attempt to renege on our deal, the other is entitled to take repayment however they wish, with no resistance. Do you agree?" "I do," he said. "Then let me hear your opening offer. What is this soldier's life to you?" "Apologies for my rudeness, I'd refer to him by name, but I'd forgotten it already," she said. "I do not know his name either. He joined my battalion only recently," Garen replied. She frowned at the young man. He clearly did not know what he was getting into. "I offer a memory," he said, "from childhood. My sister and I astride my uncle's back as he barked like a Noxian drakehound. We laughed for many hours. It is a good memory, unsullied by what would later happen to him at the hands of one like you." The old woman thought about it. "You do me disrespect," she said. "You think to trade a joyous memory as if that was all I savor." She cupped the soldier's head in her hand and relished the wisps of memory flowing into her mind from his. "I want everything. The pain, the confusion, the anger. It keeps me looking young." She laughed, dragging a twisted finger across her wrinkled cheek. "I offer my grief then, at my uncle's death," Garen said. "Not good enough, you bore me," said the Lady of Stones and pulled tighter on the leash. Garen sprang to his feet and unsheathed his sword. The hag's heart leapt at the thought of killing the impatient young knight, but instead of attacking, he dropped to one knee, lowering his head before her, and gently placed the tip of his blade on her lap. "Search my mind," he said. "Take whatever memory you wish. I am young, but I have seen much, and experienced a life of privilege that you might find pleasurable. Should you try to take more than one memory, of course, I will push this sword through you. But any single memory is yours for the keeping." The woman could not help but crackle. He thought she would be satisfied with one memory to counterbalance the entire life of his colleague. His courage or ignorance was unquestionable, but one had to respect it. Smacking her lips, she leaned over and placed her palms upon his head. She closed her eyes and peeled back the layers of his mind. She saw triumph at the Battle of White Rock, his lieutenant's wedding feast, the loneliness after his dying comrade on the fields of Brushmore. And then she saw his sister. She felt his intense love for her, mixed with something else. Fear? Disgust? Discomfort? She pushed deeper into his mind, past his conscious memories. Her search would be much easier was it not for his special armor. Then she found his childhood. She saw Garen and Lux as children, playing with small figurines. Garen had his metal crusaders against Lux's clay mages. Lux was angry at Garen that the fight was unfair. Her figurines had magic, how could they possibly lose against soldiers? She shouted at him, light shooting from her fingertips. He was blinded, confused and frightened. Then their mother entered the room and dragged his sister away. She then knelt down and told Garen he didn't see what he thought he saw, that it wasn't real, just a game. Little Garen, his mouth agape, nodded. Just a game. His sister is not a mage. She couldn't be. He pushes the memory as deep as it can go. The woman found more memories like this one in his head, each ending with a blinding spray of light. Each memory a mixture of love, fear, denial, anger, betrayal and protectiveness. The night had not been wrong. These were good memories, far juicier than those provided by the broken man. She smiled. Garen had been clever, putting his sword at her stomach, but he wasn't clever enough. Once she took a memory, he would forget he had ever possessed it. She could take whatever she wanted. Branching her fingers, she shifted through his memories, searching for anything involving the Girl of Light. She snatched up every single one found before pulling out of his mind. "Yes," she said, opening her eyes. "This will do." She pointed at the cavern's exit. "Your bargain is accepted. A single memory for a single life. Take the boy and leave at once." Garen stood and moved to the leashed soldier. He bent down, helped the soldier up, and began to walk backward out of the cave, never once looking away from her. Quaint, he was worried she might break the deal. Poor thing didn't realize she already had. Garen stopped. He dropped his companion to the ground and charged, his eyes still locked on hers. The woman was thrilled. He was too big, too slow to ready his sword before she would attack. Crackling energy fired from her fingers. Within his eyes she saw all the memories she would feast upon. Then she felt something cold inside her. Something which spread the same nullifying feeling as his armor had before. She looked down and saw his blade piercing her chest. Red and black seeped from the wound, dripping on the knight's gauntlet as he stared into her fading eyes. He was faster than she thought. "Why?" she tried to say, only to cough up a mouthful of black bile. "You lied," he answered. The hag smiled, acidic tar bubbling between her teeth. "How do you know?" "I felt lighter, unburdened," Garen replied. He blinked. "I didn't feel right. Give them back." She thought for a moment as her blood mixed into the mud of the cold cave floor. The hag's fingers went numb as she placed them upon Garen's skull, forcing the memories back into his mind. He gritted his teeth with pain, and when he opened his eyes, she could tell from their wariness that he had gotten everything he wanted. "Why even bother with the trade?" the old woman asked. "You are stronger than I thought. Much stronger. Leash or no, you could have sliced me to ribbons before I lifted a finger. Why bother letting me into your mind at all? To draw first blood in a stranger's home without giving them a chance would be impolite." The hag crackled. "Is that a Demacian rule?" "A personal one," Garen said and pulled the sword out of the hag's chest. Blood spilled from the open wound and she slumped over, dead. He didn't spare her another look as he picked up the soldier and began their long march back into Demacia. And without rules, he thought to himself, where would the world be? And that was the story of Garen. A nice follow-up to Lux's story. So again, if you haven't seen that one, I recommend doing so. For now, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, feel free to click the like below and subscribe to the channel for more stories. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Discord if you'd like to chat. Again, thank you so much for watching and for your feedback, you know I appreciate it. And as always, thank you come again.